The gun has played a critical role in history, an invention which has been praised and denounced, served hero and villain alike, and carries with it moral responsibility. To understand the gun is to better understand history. In the world of modern firearms, the future is closer than you might imagine. The marriage between sophisticated technology and tradition has brought gun makers to the brink of a new frontier.
Products that can come out of this are really limited by the imagination of the engineering personnel that are assigned to the project working on it.
If we think we can do a ray gun, we probably can do a ray gun. It's just going to take a little more technology, a little more time.
I think what we will see will be guns that fire bullets that will be able to go over top of barricades. They'll explode over top of barricades, and they will strike the bad guys.
Now, I haven't been told to go build a lightsaber yet, but I'm waiting for that.
Since the first crude firearms were forged by hand centuries ago, the goal has been the same. Make lighter, more durable, and smarter guns that can fire faster, farther, and with more accuracy. Ironically, in the next century, the goal will also be to make some guns less deadly. But creating the guns of the future will go beyond making improvements to just the machinery itself.
Looking at future weapon systems is to start moving your eyes from simply pipes with rifling in them to systems that work together to accomplish the mission. Right now we think of a rifle alone as a weapon system, and that's the gun. But what we're beginning to do by putting electronics on the gun, putting electronics on the soldier, and having the multiple soldiers being able to link together is then making the entire element a weapon system.
The idea is simple. Take what works and make it work in a changing world driven by the advanced technology of computers. However, implementing that idea is not an easy task, given that the basic components of a gun are not much different than they were 100 years ago. The history of firearms can be charted by a continuous, ongoing series of technical advances. The first hand cannons replaced bows and arrows. Matchlocks replaced the hand cannons. Then came wheel locks, followed by flintlocks, cartridge revolvers, and ultimately automatic pistols and rifles.
In any given time, a particular gun would be the gun of the future. In other words, the guns of the past at their particular place and time in history were futuristic guns.
The period since World War II has seen a rapid acceleration in improvements to gun technology. The result has been guns of the future that exist today. In the mid-1960s, for example, the Army introduced the M16 assault rifle, which replaced the standard M14. Initially called the AR-16, the M16 was made from metal alloys and plastics. Thus, the gun was much lighter, a tremendous benefit for soldiers in the field.
I was a young Marine in Vietnam at that time and carried an M14. And the M14 had been the first gun that I had actually fired. I formed the opinion that the M14 was certainly perhaps one of the finest rifles ever made. However, I think, in looking back at it, and even looking at the AR-15-16 at that time, it was a lot lighter, easier to carry. I think it was certainly a weapon of the future.
But for every success, there have been dozens of misfires. Some attempts failed miserably.
Maybe you could call them solutions for problems that didn't exist, but they were kind of fun, and they were certainly innovative in their time.
One such weapon developed in the 1960s was called the gyrojet. It was not so much a gun as it was a small rocket launcher.
The way it works is the cartridges themselves are loaded into the gun, into the magazine. Their hammer is actually forward of the cartridge, and what happens is that when you pull the trigger, the hammer pushes the little rocket back onto a fixed firing pin. This ignites the charge, and this thing takes off.
The gyrojet had two major drawbacks. It was not very powerful, and it was wildly inaccurate.
We're not going to be able to fire this here today because of the dry brush in Southern California would probably ignite this whole place. So, unfortunately, we will not be able to fire it.
Another attempt to make a space-age gun was the Dardic. What made the Dardic revolutionary was not so much the gun, but its ammunition. Triangular plastic-coated bullets called Trowns.
It was a revolver of sorts. You took these little Trowns and you put them in the magazine in the butt, and as you pulled the trigger, it would kind of flop into the cylinder, and you'd fire it, and then the cylinder would rotate and it would fall out. And they would pick up another one, and then you'd fire it, and then the next one would fall out. The guns themselves were kind of flimsy. Nobody cared. I mean, what's the advantage to this thing?
Today, the Dardic is a collector's item, and its ammunition is so rare that a single Trown costs
$50.
Though the Dardic and the gyrojet were failures, they were emblematic of an ever-accelerating race to create new weapons for the next millennium. Today, gun makers agree that the key to the future lies in the materials used. And the next generation of superguns will be made from synthetic alloys never before dreamed possible.
Two warriors armed themselves with the Winchester Model 1866 when they confronted General George Custer's troops at the Battle of Little Bighorn. Modern Marvels will return in a moment. We now return to super guns on Modern Marvels.
For those familiar with firearms, the new Heckler & Koch G36, introduced in 1999, is the future. Made from a polymer plastic, the machine gun is one of the lightest automatic weapons in the world, weighing in at just 6.5 pounds.
The G36, as being a futuristic weapon, starting with the material that it's made out of, the receiver, the buttstock, the pistol grip, most parts of the pistol, the carry handle, everything is just about polymer. We are finding that polymer is a very durable, flexible, reliable material.
Even the gun's magazines are made from plastic. They are more durable than steel magazines, which can dent if dropped on cement. Besides its light weight, the G36 uses state-of-the-art gun technology to create a weapon that some say is near perfect. The gun is easy to assemble and disassemble. It rarely needs cleaning, and it can be quickly adapted to any situation. The G36 comes with 3 different barrels that can be changed in the field, depending upon tactical needs. Another futuristic feature of the G36 is the ability to change the sights to fit a specific situation. The G36 can use a traditional iron sight, a daylight scope, or a night vision scope. Though it has become a favorite of the police, the weapon has also made an appearance in the war zone, with German peacekeeping forces patrolling in Kosovo.
You will probably be able to look back at the G36 and realize that could be, or could have been, or is the platform for the basis for whatever's coming in the future. You know, we're talking about the polymar, we're talking about the easy controls, the cleaning, the maintenance, the ability to easily operate.
Ultimately, what sets the G36 apart from other weapons like it is its weight. But gun manufacturers traditionally have been leery of making their products lighter for fear of reducing durability. Plastics and aluminum seem to be one answer. At the Beretta manufacturing plant outside of Washington, D.C., the world's most popular handgun, the 9mm, is made.
What we started with is this solid block of aluminum, and you can see that we've hogged that all out. We've taken out about 75% of the weight, and you can see all the material that's been removed and how we end up with this finished frame, which is now ready to be anodized and then sent to the manufacturing and assembly area.
In the 1970s, the Glock automatic pistol revolutionized how people thought about plastics in firearms. More than 90% of the gun was made from plastic, proving that the material could be used successfully in a handgun. But perhaps the most revolutionary material being utilized today is the metal alloy called titanium. Titanium is often used in the aircraft industry as a substitute for aluminum. It is found in the outer skin and landing gear components of commercial planes. It also serves as housing for jet engines.
3, 2, 1.
Titanium has been widely used in missiles and space capsules, and it was a major part of the Apollo and Gemini space programs. But only in the past few years has titanium found a home in the gun industry. Because it is a metal that bends, meaning it can be easily manipulated in the manufacturing process, it was at first thought to have too much give to work in a firearm. But by incorporating small sections of steel into the housing of a revolver, new ultra-lightweight titanium handguns are starting to come on the market.
The advantage is it's corrosion resistant, it's much lighter than steel, it's a little more flexible. Consequently, you have a little bit of a problem making a gun completely out of titanium. The Brazilian firm of Taurus has a superb new series of titanium revolvers out where the guns are about 99.9% titanium.
But the guns still must have steel liners in their barrels because titanium cannot be rifled. Other parts, like springs and the firing pin, must also be made from steel. And because so much of the gun is made from light material, a large revolver can weigh as little as a pound. In fact, the weight of the largest steel handgun made by Taurus, the .454 revolver, amazes even the most seasoned gun enthusiasts.
Wow.
But superguns are not just ultralight weapons that still have power. In the military, the simple act of firing at a target may someday incorporate a dizzying array of advanced technology. But even there, the most important component still will be the soldier himself.
In 1956, Heckler & Koch developed the G3, an infantry rifle for the German army. It was regarded as a milestone in the history of the defense industry. Modern Marvels will continue in a moment. Modern Marvels now returns to superguns.
At an underground military firing range, just outside of Washington, D.C., the Army's latest weapons technology is put through its paces. Called the Land Warrior System, this weapon of the future is not just a gun, but an entire soldier. Those developing the Land Warrior system use words more associated with computers than guns. Software, batteries, mouses, joysticks.
You always have to keep
Though the Army may not care for the comparison, a soldier equipped with a Land Warrior resembles something out of a science fiction film.
What it enables you to do is it enables you to give the individual soldier now enhanced capability on the battlefield. Now what's happened is we've now incorporated the chin mic system here, which is simply done by activating on the chest, push to talk. This enables now each individual soldier on the battlefield voice communication at all times. This is essential for command and control, especially at a leader standpoint.
The soldier carries an M4 machine gun, which is fitted with infrared and thermal sights. A heads-up display can be accessed through an eyepiece, which can give the soldier instant information about where he and his unit are in the field.
Okay, the iHouse here enables the soldier a direct link through his computer system to the weapon system that the soldier carries now. This weapon system is the M4 modular weapon system. This weapon system was designed to incorporate different sights according to the mission. Today, this leader configuration is equipped with a medium thermal weapon sight, a digital laser rangefinder with integrated compass, a daylight video camera, and can also incorporate a bayonet.
You literally start with a naked soldier who's trained and ready. Then what we begin doing is we put the initial environmental layer around him, uniform, protection from chemical environments, those type of things. You then wrap him in any mission-specific equipment, load-bearing equipment, packs. The third layer then becomes the digital components, the computer radio subsystem, the integrated helmet assembly, which has the daylight video sight and the night thermal sight with the daylight imaging capability in it.
He sends them a message, and he may want to...
Platoon leaders carry a handheld computer screen, which allows them to manipulate data in the field before sending it to command.
With this map, you can go over to the different things, and you can see that you can draw on the map, you can enlarge it, you can zoom in on your position. Go to zoom in, please. There, and you got to click down here. So you click on the particular target, and you zoom it in.
A computer mouse button on the trigger housing of the M4 allows the soldier to decipher information and transmit it to his command center.
He clicks, pops open a menu. It's pre-formatted messages. Data's already filled into the appropriate fields. He fills in any final details he wants, hits send, and it hops up the chain of command to the appropriate levels.
The soldier's computer that he has on board is located right here. This computer system enables him really an adverse area to work with. He's able to pull up certain data files that he needs to use for individual tasks as well as for the mission task. And once again, this is brought up through the monocular display that he has on the front of his Kevlar. The soldier's global positioning system that he has on board, which he's able to bring up in his iHouse as well, gives him the ability to know his position on the battlefield as well as his friendly soldiers left and right, and enemy positions.
Though the trading of information in battle is crucial to victory, one of the system's more basic components may be the most favored among soldiers field testing the Land Warrior. The gun sight has a video viewfinder that can relay televised images of the combat zone back to command. The viewfinder also means a soldier does not have to be looking down the barrel of the gun in order to accurately fix on a target.
Let's say the soldier's in a military operations and urban terrain, mountain environment. Lots of shooting around corners, lots of exposing yourself to try and see what's around corners. With the sights on the rifle having the ability to connect up to the heads-up display, this soldier can look through the sight on the weapon. So instead of having to lean around the corner and expose the upper portion of his body to potential fire in order to see, he instead just has to take the rifle and put it around the corner, exposing at best his hands. If he does it right, he can probably get away with not having to do that as well. Not only will he be able to see around the corner, but he's also going to be able to engage targets precisely. And that's an important piece of this. It's the precision with which you can engage targets. You may remember scenes from Vietnam that you'd see on TV where there'd be people shooting over their heads out of foxholes, and they're just spraying bullets. You don't have to do this. You can put the gun up there. You still have the same security that you had in those positions in Vietnam, but you can precisely engage the enemy.
However, the high-tech sighting systems of the Land Warrior go far beyond simple video technology. The gun is also equipped with day-for-night sights that allow a soldier to look into the darkness and see as if it were high noon. And to ensure that the system has every technology currently available, the Army has incorporated thermal sighting as well. A soldier can detect the body heat of an enemy up to 500 yards away.
Let's say you're at night or you're having trouble identifying targets in a wood line, you can flip over to your thermal weapon sight, and the body heat of an individual brings you up like a big light bulb in a dark area. And again, there are crosshairs on there, aligned with the barrel, and you can lay your sight directly on the target again and return fire. So from a personal perspective, personal engagement standpoint, the weapon system becomes more a part of the individual soldier and a more precise weapon.
Perfecting the Land Warrior requires sophisticated training facilities as well. This special night vision range is a high-tech marvel unto itself.
We have the ability to turn the lights off. We can go in complete darkness, as you can see, and we can use the image intensification devices, which depend upon a small amount of light to intensify and provide you an image.
Though the Land Warrior system is still in the prototype stage, the Army hopes it will be ready for the field within 2 years. The challenge now is to make the components of the Land Warrior system even smaller and lighter. The total package now weighs less than 25 pounds.
On this system right here, since it's a demonstrator model and everything, what we've done is we've incorporated the soldier intercom system here, which this will be done away with. This system right here is the DCM, which basically runs from the IHOS through to the computer system. This will be reduced about half its size. The cable itself, we're still working the routing aspect of it and which direction we want to go with it.
One of the main drawbacks to the system is a lack of battery time. Currently, all the computer technology in a Land Warrior drains a battery in about 12 hours. A soldier can only carry 2 of the batteries, so he must be resupplied every 24 hours. The other factor is cost. So far, millions have been spent developing the Land Warrior system, and millions more are necessary to get it into the hands of soldiers in the field.
They're going to be more expensive. There's going to be more things that can go wrong. And it's going to take a greater degree of training and sophistication to get the average soldier to use these things. I've been in the Army, and I can remember getting the average recruit just to be able to work his M14 properly was difficult.
But Army officials say soldiers trained with the Land Warrior pick it up quickly. For young people who grew up in the computer age, having a mouse control button on a gun seems natural. The Army believes that the new Land Warrior system is the weapon of the future, not just because of its firing capabilities, but as part of a total information system. Many envision a day when a soldier looking at an enemy on the ground can send information or an image to a pilot in a fighter jet high above the combat zone. In essence, this gun of the future will fight on a virtual battlefield.
Warfare is managed chaos. And what you want to do is you want to allow the enemy to have much more of the chaos and you more of the management. So you want to make sure that as the pilot comes in, he can discern where you are, where the enemy is, he understands what his targets are, and so you want him to gather data from the soldiers on the ground.
But not every supergun is geared for killing an enemy. In the gritty world of police work, the objective is often the opposite. For the deputies in the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, using modern technology in their weapons may help them with the toughest part of their job, fighting criminals and saving lives.
To be accepted by the Army, the Land Warrior system must weigh less than 80 pounds. Currently, the personal load weighs 79 pounds, while the combat load weighs 92 pounds, including water and ammunition. Superguns will return in a moment. We now return to Superguns on Modern Marvels.
For police officers across the country, taking a human life is a last desperate resort.
If the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to think of every problem as a nail. And as a result of that, if the only way you have of resolving this problem is with lethal force, you tend to think of it as a lethal force problem. Well, there's some real problems with that. One of which is that it takes substantial provocation to use lethal force. And right along with that provocation comes a substantial amount of risk. So anything that we can do to intervene at a lower level by using less force or less lethal force allows the officer to resolve the situation without the accompanying risk.
I think there's a trend that maybe to be more tolerant, to find techniques maybe to use less lethal force. I think that police officers 10, 15, 20 years from now need to be a lot smarter than we've been in the last, through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Certainly more tolerant.
But developing non-lethal methods to fight criminals, many of whom are armed to the teeth, is a speculative venture.
This is such a new field that some of these terms we've actually had to coin, non-lethal being one of them. There was never a way to describe that. What happens is that a less lethal weapon, for the first time in history, is being defined by its intent and not its capability. Where a lethal weapon attempts to defeat an adversary's ability to fight, a less lethal weapon attempts to defeat his will to fight.
Finding clever ways not to kill people who are fighting the police has involved years of trial and error. Rubber bullets, meant to be used in riot situations to strike a person in the knees, can ricochet off the ground and shatter a windpipe.
There's two misnomers with less lethal force. One is that it won't kill you, and that's not true in most cases. And the other one is that it's painless, and that's definitely not true. To more precisely define it and keep it in the minds of our deputies, we tell them that it's less lethal or less than lethal, meaning that we're trying to intervene without having to resort to our sidearms.
At the LA County Sheriff's firing range, a new generation of non-traditional weapons holds promise.
What has happened is that in the last 4 or 5 years, the Department of Defense has been downsizing. And as a result of that, the developers and defense contractors and federal laboratories who have had this huge defense market in the past have had to find some way or some other place to sell their goods. And as a result of that, very similar in application and function as law enforcement.
The premise is simple. Stop a violent criminal without having to take that person's life. Police believe the best way to do that is to inflict pain.
The idea of pain we're comfortable with. We can use pain to induce compliance. The problem is that most of these devices also have trauma accompanied with the pain. Pain is okay. The trauma we're trying to avoid. It's usually something that we're willing to live with for right now. bruising, abrasions, but sometimes it can break bones, it can leave serious bruises, and depending on how it's used, serious injuries, internal injuries and things like that.
To try and avoid inflicting trauma, sheriffs are using an arsenal of new weapons in their battle to end officer-involved shootings. Though this weapon looks like a regular shotgun, it actually fires shells filled with bean bags.
This is probably the boldest venture that we've taken so far. Every radio car has one in the field right now. Keeps it in the trunk. It's available when they need it. We've saved, I don't even know how many people's lives. The very first weekend that we employed it, we saved a guy's life that had a knife. Had that same incident occurred even a day before, they'd have had to kill him.
Little training is needed because the stun bag weapon works just like any shotgun.
The biggest problem with a beanbag right now is that it's not very aerodynamic. It doesn't fly straight, and as a result of that, it doesn't go where we want it to go. They're either square or circular pads that are curled up inside the shotgun shell, and then they come out of the tube of the shotgun and then open up. In order to be effective, they need to strike flat. But in order to fly, they need to allow the wind to go around them, so they fly like a leaf in the wind.
A step up on the pain threshold is a severe-looking weapon called the Arwen. The gun fires 5-inch shells of hardened plastic that can dent a metal door.
As you can see by the impacts on this metal door, that the velocity and the weight is enough to give somebody no question that they've been hit. And it generally 1 or 2 shots put somebody down.
We saved a woman's life. She was going to commit suicide. She had a .357 underneath her chin, and we hit her right in the arm with the R1. Broke her arm, and we felt bad. We thought, oh, we're really going to catch heat for this. But we were the heroes, because the alternative to that same situation was to shoot her, or let her shoot herself. And so as a result of that, even though it wasn't the circumstance that we had hoped for, it was so much better than the alternative. And that was one of the times that we coined the phrase, the standard is not perfection. The standard is the alternative.
A crucial factor in implementing less than lethal force is keeping the police far away from an armed suspect. One answer is firing thick plastic rings from an air-powered rifle. The rings can travel up to 100 yards and still be effective. When used properly, the ring can knock the wind out of a suspect or inflict enough pain to stop a person in their tracks. If all else fails, police are working on a less high-tech, non-lethal weapon that utilizes an ammunition typically associated with teenage pranksters. This gun fires stink bombs, plastic pellets filled with a revolutionary liquid that smells worse than just about anything on Earth.
It smells like a combination of fecal matter, dead mammals, garlic, and sulfur all mixed together. And just wave it under your nose. This stuff will gag a maggot. This stuff is going to be great. When we don't even know everything we can do with this stuff yet.
Another version fires pellets filled with pepper powder, a choking compound that irritates the eyes and throat.
So we have special masks for the deputies that filter out the powder, but also on the suspect's clothing, we need to keep it on him so we don't contaminate our car, contaminate our jail. So what we've come up with is conventional, regular hairspray that we spray it on, and it seals it to the clothes. So this powder that's here will be sealed on there with the stickiness of the hairspray.
for the police, attempts to put weapons with less than lethal force into the field is essential to the future of law enforcement. Because when an officer is forced to fire his gun, the repercussions for everyone involved are severe.
There's some tremendous trauma, particularly psychological trauma, that accompany people that use lethal force. We send our people to a psychologist for 5 days. They're taken out of the field. I mean, it's a tremendous life-changing event when you're put in a position that you're not allowed to flee from and have to resolve and end up having to kill someone. So less lethal provide that option of intervening without that accompanying humanitarian problems. Not to say that there's none there with it, it's just not to the degree with lethal force.
Implementing less than lethal weaponry on a wide scale may still be years away. In the meantime, gun manufacturers are looking for ways to make traditional weapons not only more effective, but safer. Thanks to computer technology, these guns may someday have brains as well as bullets.
In 1995, Special Forces units in Somalia considered using lasers that could temporarily blind the enemy, but thought the risk of permanent blindness was too high and decided against them. Superguns will continue in a moment. We now return to Superguns on Modern Marvels.
Inside the grip of this Colt 45 may lie the future of supergun technology. The smart gun is equipped with a small computer, which allows the trigger to be activated only by its owner. This is possible because the shooter wears a special wristwatch programmed to restrict access to the gun's firing mechanism. If the concept proves successful, it could revolutionize guns and gun safety.
It's not as easy as putting a lock on it like some people may want to tell you. I think it's a situation that if we can build a better mousetrap, to coin that phrase, we're going to be a company to go into this next millennium and be the head of the game like our founder did when he first started it.
2 years ago, after a series of highly publicized school shootings, officials at Colt Manufacturing decided they wanted to do something to make guns safer, much safer. Another motivation was the fact that 12% of the police officers killed in the line of duty each year are shot with their own guns, taken away from them by criminals. Colt hired a team of Silicon Valley designers to blend the latest in computer technology with the firing system of an automatic pistol.
This product has an electronic device that is installed in it that prevents the trigger from operating unless the weapon is in the hands of an authorized user. This particular weapon has been developed for the law enforcement community. It is our second prototype of the smart gun, and it uses a transmitter. As you can see, the trigger is not active right now in that when you pull it, the hammer does not fire. However, when in the close proximity of a transmitting device, the trigger unlocks, and now the gun can be fired. And as long as the weapon is in the hands or in close proximity to the transmitting device, the weapon becomes or stays active. If the weapon is taken away from the police officer or the person using it, such that it is no longer in proximity of the transmitter, the weapon no longer is functional.
The smart gun has come a long way since the first prototype was built in early 1999. The technology that makes it work used to be housed in a large box. Now, it fits into the grip of the gun. In June 1999, our cameras were the first to record Colt's working smart gun prototype in action at the company's range in Hartford, Connecticut. Since members of law enforcement will most likely be the first to use the weapon, officials at Colt want to be very sure that it will work every time.
The question now is, can we do it reliably? And therein lies the $64,000 question and the unknowns associated with the product. There are a number of people that have commented that this technology is ready for prime time right now. That's not quite so. We have the technology to make the firearm functional, as you can see from this one here. Now the question is this going to operate reliably in the field, first time, every time, for as long as the law enforcement official needs it?
It's that reliance on computers that has many in the gun world wondering just how far technology should go in trying to improve something that has been around for more than 500 years.
Computers are certainly the wave of the future. They're being included in everything: automobiles, airplanes, and firearms. The problem with computers, and I think we've probably all experienced this with our cars as well, is that the more things you got going on in there, the more chances you have for something to go wrong. And when you're in a battlefield situation, you want things to work as simply and as effectively as possible. I am certainly no expert on electronics and computers, and I'm sure that they're probably coming up with some wonderful, wonderful systems. But we must always remember that there must be some simple backup system so that if something happens to these things, you can still fire the gun without having to worry about wearing a helmet or a heads-up display or some sort of a smart system whereby nobody else can fire the gun but you.
But in an age where the computer is the driving force behind nearly every new technology developed, there is no denying that the interaction between the microchip and the firearm is inevitable.
I think we'll see some kind of a marriage or combination, computerized ammo, computerized guns, that will be really doing very smart things. It will take all the thinking other than the decision to use deadly force. I think those computers will do the distance, and we're already there in a sense, but I think they'll refine that even more. I think the marriage between the computer, the gun, and the ammo will be even greater.
And as technology changes the world of guns, it also changes who buys guns and why.
The person buying and carrying guns today are much different than even 30 years ago. We grew up with firearms. Kids that were in high school in the 70s, we hunt, we fished, we did a lot of shooting. Today, people are less exposed to firearms due to the political climate, a lack of ranges to go shoot, and a general lack of hunting in this country. So the guns of the future have to have systems built into them, very much like cars, electric dryers for your hair, any kind of tool or appliance that's used by a novice. But with the firearm, keeping your finger off the trigger is only part of the system. Internally, it has to be drop-proof. It has to be able to function correctly at all times. If we wanted to just sit back and just sell guns for the sake of selling guns, we could write our current designs for probably another 50 years. But we would be less responsive as a company, I feel, if we just did that.
What will the super gun of the future be like? Just looking at the changes that took place with technology in the 20th century, it's anyone's guess.
There's a kid growing up and reading comic books, as a for instance, and I'm reading all the crime fighters, or I'm reading comic books about people going to the moon and in rocket ships and space platforms and everything, and whoever would have thought that in the 90s or the 80s, putting a space shuttle up is just, a thing that can be done any day of the week. And so based on that experience, I think that 30, 40, 50 years, maybe we'll be using ray guns, magic things that won't have any failures, that won't shoot the wrong people.
Tomorrow on the History Channel.
With a top speed of over 650 miles per hour and a crew of 2, the B-2 can reach and accurately hit any important military target on the globe.
How can a plane this size show up on radar screens no bigger than a bug? See how these mysterious black jets become almost invisible to the enemy through top-secret stealth technology on Modern Marvels. Tomorrow night at 10 on the History Channel. Now, an exclusive home video offer from the History Channel. You can own the program you've just seen for only $24.95 plus shipping and handling. To order, call 1-800-708-1776 or shop online at historychannel.com.
The gun has played a critical role in history, an invention which has been praised and denounced, served hero and villain alike, and carries with it moral responsibility. To understand the gun is to better understand history. In the world of modern firearms, the future is closer than you might imagine. The marriage between sophisticated technology and tradition has brought gun makers to the brink of a new frontier.
Products that can come out of this are really limited by the imagination of the engineering personnel that are assigned to the project working on it.
If we think we can do a ray gun, we probably can do a ray gun. It's just going to take a little more technology, a little more time.
I think what we will see will be guns that fire bullets that will be able to go over top of barricades. They'll explode over top of barricades, and they will strike the bad guys.
I haven't been told to go build a lightsaber yet, but I'm waiting for that.
Since the first crude firearms were forged by hand centuries ago, the goal has been the same. Make lighter, more durable, and smarter guns that can fire faster, farther, and with more accuracy. Ironically, in the next century, the goal will also be to make some guns less deadly. But creating the guns of the future will go beyond making improvements to just the machinery itself.
Looking at future weapon systems is to start moving your eyes from simply pipes with rifling in them to systems that work together to accomplish the mission. Right now we think of a rifle alone as a weapon system, and that's the gun. But what we're beginning to do by putting electronics on the gun, putting electronics on the soldier, and having the multiple soldiers being able to link together is then making the entire element a weapon system.
The idea is simple. Take what works and make it work in a changing world driven by the advanced technology of computers. However, implementing that idea is not an easy task, given that the basic components of a gun are not much different than they were 100 years ago. The history of firearms can be charted by a continuous, ongoing series of technical advances. The first hand cannons replaced bows and arrows. Matchlocks replaced the hand cannons. Then came wheel locks, followed by flintlocks, cartridge revolvers, and ultimately automatic pistols and rifles.
In any given time, a particular gun would be the gun of the future. In other words, the guns of the past at their particular place and time in history were futuristic guns.
The period since World War II has seen a rapid acceleration in improvements to gun technology. The result has been guns of the future that exist today. In the mid-1960s, for example, the Army introduced the M16 assault rifle, which replaced the standard M14. Initially called the AR-16, the M16 was made from metal alloys and plastics. Thus, the gun was much lighter, a tremendous benefit for soldiers in the field.
I was a young Marine in Vietnam at that time, and carried an M14. And the M14